Howdy folks, Jake here at the Banjo Bin General Store. On behalf of BanjoBinClark.com, the site that teaches you how to play guitar, mandolin, banjo, and all sorts of other interesting things. Today we have a topic to discuss that's one that's, I believe, often overlooked, certainly is by me, something that I take for granted. And that is the topic of, if I'm buying an instrument that I'm new to, what do I need to go with that instrument? And that is completely depends on the instrument. There's a whole different world from one instrument to another. And it may be that you're already very familiar with the guitar and you're getting into banjo. Well, there's a whole different set of accessories and picks and gadgets that can go along with the banjo that you might want to know about that you may not have already known about. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I do encourage you, we'll start with the guitar and move to the mandolin, then move to the banjo. I encourage you to watch all of it because I know there'll be some things I talk about in probably more detail on the guitar that will also apply to the mandolin that I may not go into as much detail in on the mandolin because I've already talked about it on the guitar. That makes sense. So the way in my mind I answer this question is you have the essentials and then you have the extras that enhance what you need. So by essentials, I mean you have things you absolutely have to play the guitar, and at least for your particular style of play. And since we're mostly talking about bluegrass here, that would be things like a pick. And I bring that up mostly talking about bluegrass approach because that's kind of our thing here. And there are great guitar players that play without picks, just using their fingers. So the pick isn't something you absolutely have to have depending on the style, which is what I meant by what I said earlier. But to play the style that we play, you absolutely have to have a flat pick. Now, they make all different shapes and sizes. We often recommend something in the 1 millimeter, or if it's measured in inches, 40 thousandths of an inch is about similar to 1 millimeter. That's kind of the range we like to stay in, anywhere from there and up, depending on your personal preference. We feel if you go too thin, the tone gets clacky, and we don't like it. But that's certainly personal preference. There's plenty of people who do like thinner picks that make good use of it. And I've got a whole flat pick video out there that talks about all the different kind of flat picks. So we won't go into super detail on that. Just maybe an assortment of cheap picks to start to see what you like. And then you can graduate into something like the blue chips, which is the ones we sell the most of. They're a premium pick. They're much more expensive, but they're awesome and they last a good long while and play and sound great. So that's first up. You need a pick to go along with your guitar. Moving on, and I'm just using one of my personal instruments here. I feel you need a strap. Now, you certainly don't have to have a strap if you're just going to sit in a chair. But if you're going to use the guitar in any kind of real life situation at all, maybe a jam session or you play on stage somewhere, or you're doing a small concert somewhere, more often than not, you're going to need a strap at some point. Straps are all pretty similar. Most people can make do with any strap that's sold, and we certainly sell a bunch of them here. You can see a whole rack of them to my left. And the one I'm using right now is a Lakota leather strap. They're just real nice leather, real soft. I really like those. They work well. They're comfortable. So I recommend a strap. It holds the guitar in place. And I also recommend whenever you use a strap to use it where it stays in place when you're sitting down as well. In other words, I adjust my strap to where when I stand up, the guitar is not all of a sudden down here, if that makes sense. I like it to be in the same place as where I'm sitting, so everything feels the same. With that, you're going to need a strap button. Most guitars do not come with this installed. Now, we do install it on any guitar before it ships from our shop. Most places hopefully would do that, but not all places do. You can certainly end up with a guitar that doesn't have this button. I highly recommend it. I like that a lot better. I think it's a better system. It's more secure than going around the peg head with the strap. Although you certainly can go around the peg head with the strap. I've seen lots of people do that. So strap button's the next thing that I'd recommend. Moving up, to play bluegrass style guitar, like I said, this is kind of maybe one of those subjective areas. I feel you need a capo. You just have to. I couldn't get by without one playing shows and whatnot. So Capo is just this simple device here, and this is a Page Capo. This is a very affordable one. It's sub $20, and it's made in a very similar style to some of the much more expensive Capos that'll run you 150 bucks and up. So I prefer this style of Capo because the way it adjusts with the thumb screw, I can get exactly the amount of direct pressure on the strings that I want without causing them to go too sharp or flat. And it stores behind the nut, and I can just slide it into position. Yeah, I can just put it back here, and it stays out of my way when I'm playing. And then when I want to use it, I just slide it where I want it to go, put it right behind the fret, tighten it down, and then I'm in the key that I want to be in. So I think a Capo is an important thing to have. Last but not least, as far as the necessity category goes, I think a tuner is something everybody ought to have. I'm using just one of these clip-on snarks. It's nothing super expensive. You just clip it on there. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, I accidentally hit the metronome feature. Hold on. You just hit the string you want to tune. It'll tell you if it's sharp or flat. You can adjust it where you want to go. There we go. Then you have a string that's in tune. Pretty simple thing to use. So that's pretty much stuff that I think everybody ought to have if they're playing this type of guitar. Now, some extra things that you may want. I always carry a polishing cloth with me, a rag. That way I can wipe any gunk off. Mainly what I use this for is sometimes your strings will get gunky or sticky depending on the atmosphere you're playing in. And I'll take that, run it up and down my strings a couple times during a show, and I'll keep it in my back pocket. That's one thing. During the winter, I think everyone ought to keep, and depending on where you live, sometimes year round, I think everyone ought to keep a humidifier. This is a real simple, affordable thing. And the way this one works, this one's guitar specific, but we sell all different instrument specific versions and even case versions that just go in the case. And this one just goes right between the strings of the guitar and is suspended in the guitar there. Easy peasy. I also believe most folks ought to have one of these. If you're going to change strings often, at all, or ever, even if you only ever change strings once, this thing's worth the investment for how much easier it makes changing those strings one time. It's a string winder. You just put it on the key, and then you spin it around. I'm not going to do it now because my guitar's in tune. It allows you to wind up that string, the new string, a lot quicker. It also has a pin puller built into the end. I can slip over that pin there and pop it out. It also has string cutters. So with the excess string that's there, I put the string cutters on there, pop off that extra string sticking out. So that's a real handy thing to have in your case. Now we're getting into kind of even more subjective things. Some people like to change the pick guard on their guitar, and we sell those and offer that service as well. This is a really cool tortoise one, and you can see it would, obviously it's in the plastic. I'm not going to go into great detail about. We've got videos specific to a lot of these products we're talking about. I've actually got a video out there where we show you how to do this process yourself if you want to change your pick guard. Some people like the looks of that. Some people like installing these John Pierce armrests. That's just a peel and stick thing. You just put it right on the top there. You know, they feel it's more comfortable. It keeps their arm off the top. Personally, the way I play, I don't really need these. I've never used them. They do look good, you know, if you like the way they look. But I play in such a way where just the very corner of the guitar is really all I touch. I arch my hand over the top, see? So I'm not like a top hugger like this, like some people are. So I don't really need that to keep me up off of the top, you know, to kill the sound. Here's another really cool item that I swear by on a mandolin. Like, I won't own a mandolin without one of these. But it also works great on a guitar. It's just a tone guard, and it just slips right on the back there, like so. And what that does is it keeps the back of the guitar away from your body. See? I've got a whole video out on these too. That does two things. It protects the back from scratches and stuff, you know, button rash. It also allows the back to resonate more. So you get, if you're standing up especially and the guitar's resting against you, you have a lot more fullness of tone than if the whole back of the guitar is just muted against your body. That's the theory behind those. Okay, the last few things here that some people might like to, these are more of upgrades. And now the thing with upgrades that you got to be conscious about, it all depends on the price point you're paying for the instrument. If you're buying a $200 guitar that has plastic bridge pins, plastic nut and saddle, and cheap tuners, that $200 guitar probably isn't worth the hundreds of dollars in labor and upgraded tuners and parts and bridge pins that it would cost, to fix it up. It's kind of like the old analogy. It's just a Volkswagen with a Corvette engine in it. It's still a Volkswagen, right? So, but that being the case, sometimes you do find a price point where you get a great guitar that's worth upgrading, worth putting a little extra into if you want to upgrade. And that's what these are for. Most guitars these days, see this one isn't even a terribly expensive guitar. It's a BR60 LE. I think sells for $685. And it already has the bone nut and saddle. So there's no need to upgrade that. But we do have, the blanks if you wanted to install your own bone nut and saddle. What the bone does over the plastic is it gives you just increased everything. It increases the bass. It increases the crispness, it increases the responsiveness of the instrument. So it's definitely worth having, but it's just that most quality manufacturers, even from this price point on up, are going to have those already installed. Now another thing that is really cool that isn't usually installed, most of the time you're going to get plastic bridge pins, even on a lot higher end guitars. So we sell all manner of bridge pin upgrades. These particular ones are bone with the abalone dots, which is a good looking package. And the bone bridge pins, they increase your sustain and stuff like that too. We also sell ebony and brass and all kinds of other materials that you could try out and get different sounds. And if you look through our website, you'll see what, if I remember right in the descriptions, I put kind of generally the tonal properties you'll get from each one. So anyway, that's guitar. Those are the things you have to have and a few extra things that you might want to have. So if you're kind of new to guitar and you're wondering, what's out there accessory-wise, you don't have to spend a ton of money to get going. A cheap strap with a strap button, a tuner, a cheap pick, and a capo of some sort. And you won't even need the capo right away, but eventually you will. And you're in business and going well. Now, also, last thing I want to mention, sometimes instruments come with hard shell cases or gig bags, and sometimes they don't. You don't have to have one, but if you're going to use the instrument in any kind of professional capacity at all, eventually you're going to have a case of some sort to transport it in. Other things that you might need are like an instrument stand to set it in your practice room so you'll pick it up more, or one of these, wall hangers where you can just hang it up and get to it. So those are a few other things that I forgot to mention. But anyway, I think that pretty well has guitar covered. We'll talk about mandolin next, and then I'll send you over to Adam for banjo after that. So stay tuned. All right, folks, next up is mandolin. Now, a lot of the things are going to be the same between guitar and mandolin. And so, like I said, you want to watch that section first to make sure we don't miss any detail. First up, we definitely need a pick because a mandolin, even less so than guitar, fingerstyle mandolin is not much of a valid style. I'm sure some people do it and do it quite well. It's just not a very common thing. So more likely than not, you're going to want to pick. Now, same rules apply with the pick. I will say the one kind of difference in mandolin picks is that oftentimes people will go with a rounded pick, which means they either take a regular pointed pick like this and they'll turn it on its side and use the rounded shoulder. That makes it easy to hit the pairs of strings, and especially if you're going to be doing tremolo playing, the pick goes through the string a little easier. And we sell all types of rounded picks, various kinds. So anyway, there's that. Also necessary, I think even more so than a guitar, is a strap. Now in a mandolin, the straps are usually designed to either go around the scroll here, if it's an F style, or they'll go around the headstock under the nut, if it's an A style. So that's just the way they're designed. And so there's not really much of a need for a strap button. Some people on an A style will occasionally have us put a strap button in. But generally speaking, mandolin straps aren't designed to take a strap button. So you got to modify the strap or use a guitar strap instead or something like that if you're going to go that route. Something else as far as a necessity goes. Now, we talked about the tuner on the guitar, same thing. I think it's important to have a tuner so you can stay in tune. I did forget to mention these clip-on tuners will just read the vibration of your instrument. So if you're in a noisy room or something like that, it won't pick up any extra noise. It'll just read your instrument. So that makes it handy whenever it's one of the clip-on types like that. That's pretty much essentials as far as mandolin. Now, you don't need a capo for a mandolin. Actually, in bluegrass circles, it's fairly frowned upon to use a capo. That being said, they do make them, and we do sell them, and they are the same as for a banjo. The one thing you got to watch out for is to know if your mandolin has a radius fingerboard or not. As you can see here, this one is a radius model. And what that means is that this bar here that makes contact with the strings has a slight curvature to it. See? And what that does is that matches the curve of the fretboard. The fretboard's kind of rounded like this, similar to a violin, if it's radius. Some mandolins are flat, just like some banjos are flat. And so you need to make sure you get the right one if you're going to use it. I definitely recommend learning to play without a capo, if possible. Now, some things that I think are pretty much indispensable if you're going to be playing the mandolin, but they're certainly not essential, but just almost. These harmonic suppressors, which we've done a whole video on, showing how they work and things like that. They're just these little hygrommets that kill the vibration of the strings behind the bridge. And what that does whenever if you mute the strings and hit them, it greatly reduces the amount of metallic-y ring you're going to get from the tailpiece. So that's a big one. I like those a whole bunch. I also feel on a mandolin, personally, I wouldn't own a mandolin that didn't have a tone guard on it. This cage on the back, similar to what we talked about on a guitar. It's even more important on a mandolin because so much of the sound comes from the back of the mandolin. So while you certainly don't, quote, have to have it, I wouldn't have a mandolin without one. That's how strongly I believe in those. That's pretty much it as far as the essentials go. Some people like to add an armrest. This is one of the clamp-on types. It goes on fairly easy. And it will work in conjunction with the tone guard and everything. This one's ebony. We sell different varieties and colors and stuff like that. And, that just gives you a little bit of a comfortable place to put your arm, keeps your arm up off the top. Like I said, personally, I don't have one of these, but they are nice. It's just not a must-have. It's more of a luxury. That's pretty much it as far as those things go. Now, as far as upgrades on a mandolin, again, it's like the guitar. It's cost sensitive, because if you're buying a $200 mandolin, there isn't really much need to upgrade the tailpiece and the bridge and the tuners and the nut and things like that. But those are certainly upgrades that can be done. You'll see this one. This is an Eastman 515. It already has a nice solid cast tailpiece. It's already got a really good quality ebony bridge, and it already comes also with very nice German-made Schaller tuners. So, and this mandolin's right around $1,000. So at that price point, there's not a whole lot you would want to change here. You just play it. So I think that pretty well covers mandolin. Same thing as guitar: straps, gig bags, stands, hangers, the string winders, and the humidifiers and the cloths. All that's going to be the same. You don't have to have any of that, but it certainly is convenient to have those things. So that pretty well will have you fixed up there, folks. We'll send you over to Adam now, and he'll tell you all about the banjo. So get ready for that one.
All right, folks, now we're going to talk about the banjo. What kind of things do you need when you are buying a banjo? Well, first off, as in the guitar and mandolin, you need to think about picks. And if you're playing bluegrass style banjo, that means you're going to need 2 finger picks and a thumb pick. Now there's lots of different types and sizes and materials and different things, but you need 2 finger picks and a thumb pick. Again, like Jake mentioned, the blue chips are very popular as far as the thumb picks go. Finger picks, there's all different types. The important thing is get some, try them out. You'll probably want to try some others out eventually anyways. So that's for bluegrass banjo. If you happen to be playing like claw hammer style, you may even want something like this. This is called the atomic pick. If you don't have very long fingernails, those can come in very handy. They just slip over your finger and kind of act in place of your fingernail. But you don't have to have that if you're playing, even if you're playing claw hammer style, you don't have to have that. So other things that are necessary, as Jake mentioned, a tuner and capos. Here's an example. This is a page capo. There's lots of different capo options as well out there, but you need a capo, and this will cover the bottom 4 strings of the banjo. Now you're also going to need something to capo your 5th string. Now here at the store, we install spikes in the 5th string, in the fingerboard there for the 5th string, and those are real easy to just hook the 5th string under, and that capos the 5th string. That's probably the most common way to capo your 5th string. But we also have this. It's called a strum hollow 5th string capo, and it just slides over the 5th string in whatever position you need. And we've got videos out there about those. Those actually here in the store are our best selling product, and they work very, very well. So that's another thing that you're going to need is a capo, both for your 5th string and for the bottom 4 strings. Also, a strap is very important on a banjo, and lots of options there. But as Jake said, if you're going to be standing at any point, playing in jam sessions or anything, you need a strap. And even for me, I find that they're very helpful just in setting to play. Kind of helps hold the banjo in place better. Banjo tends to want to walk off of your lap a little bit more so than a guitar, for instance. So those are the main necessary things that you really need to kind of get started with the banjo. There's lots of other options as far as upgrades. We carry the Ricard tuners. Those are a very accurate tuner. Those are a good upgrade for any banjo. Also carry Keith and Cheetah Keys detuners. And a lot of banjo instrumentals will make use of these. And with the banjo, it's more sensitive to little adjustments and things than some of the other instruments. And one of the most common things that you have to keep an eye on with the banjo is the head tension. And it's a good idea, especially if you travel at all with your banjo. It's a good idea to check that fairly often, as that will loosen up over time. We carry the drum dial, and I definitely recommend that you get one of these. You set your banjo down and put the drum dial on the head, and it will read the head tension. You usually put it multiple places around the head to check and make sure that your head tension is even all the way around. So that is another thing that's definitely, I think, a necessity. As far as cases, gig bags, stands, hangers like that, Jake mentioned those in the guitar video, I know, and those are things, as he said, not 100% necessity. If you're traveling at all with your banjo, I would definitely recommend a good case or gig bag. And if you're just going to sit around and play it at the house, a stand or a hanger is definitely a nice thing to have as well.
Okay, folks, thanks for sticking with us there. If we didn't say it enough times already, a lot of that is universal. You know, the things like the polishing cloths and the humidifiers and the string winders, etc. You'd want those for all the instruments. It just makes your life a little easier. Also, when Adam was talking about the banjos, one thing that he didn't mention that we talked about after the fact is the bridges. That's a big point of upgrade, and that's an easy upgrade. That it's not like on the guitar and the mandolins where sometimes it just isn't worth all the money it costs to upgrade those parts. On a banjo, it's anywhere from $25 to $40 part, and it can make a big difference even on a cheap banjo and an expensive banjo. So there's, something else to consider. But anyway, I think that pretty well has us all fleshed out here for now. So until next time, we thank you all for watching.